Good morning. Welcome to Ag Talking Raw, where I talk raw about agriculture and other things that are on my mind. Well, there's a lot of things on my mind lately. A lot of things. So, I'd ordered seed corn back in December, and enough to do 600 acres. I figured, well, what the hell? I'll do 600 acres of corn, and we'll go ahead and we'll, plant some soybeans. So I figured what I'd do is I'd take all the ground that I had in corn last year and I'd put it into soybeans. And then after the soybeans, I'll put wheat or rye or wheat and rye into those beans. Just drill them in and, not all mixed together, but wheat on one portion of it and rye on the other. And I would harvest both the wheat and the rye. Rye for cover crops and wheat for, cash crops for sale. Well, rye for sale too, but I will need rye as well. So that was the plan. Called up the seed dealer, ordered it just like I did the year before. No need to pay until you pick up. As long as it's ordered, life is good, right? Life is good. Well, life's not as good as you think. So, waiting for my seed, not getting any. So I had my dad call. I like to keep him in the loop, keeps him active in the agriculture side of it, and instead of just driving tractors. But he gets a little bit, I don't know. I think that he should have. My dad did a great job. Don't get me wrong. It's just he's frustrated now because the seed didn't show up. It's not there. Now the price has changed. A little bit disgusted with that, and it's kind of let's put it this way, stressful. So with that, I'm in the mulch hay business. Putting fertilizer on mulch hay is a tricky business. If you do it, you have to do it in a manner that you're not going to go broke. And believe me, you can go broke easily putting fertilizer on hay. And to do the carbon farming thing on hay, it is not as easy. It doesn't work. Let's put it that way. So in order to do carbon or regenerative ag on hay, you can't cut the hay. If you cut the hay, you have to put something back there that will mimic what was there, what you took away. So in order for your microbiome to actually function and work very well, grasses are excellent. Multi-species grasses on your ground is excellent for the rhizosphere and the rhizobiome and the microbiome, all that stuff that's in beneath your feet, the billions and trillions and gazillions of microorganisms that are in a teaspoon of dirt. Really need to be fed. So when you cut that hay, there's nothing for the bacteria to eat, and the bacteria... What's the matter, Will? Okay, well, not right now. I'm in the middle of something. I'll do it when I'm done, okay? Okay. Good job, boy. So you have to put something back. So I've been fighting for the last 3.5 years, with trying to get a little bit more money out of these mushroom growers or these composters, because they're expanding, they're growing, and we're at stalemate. Loggerheads, can't make no money. Used to make money, used to make good money, made really good money. It was like, oh, I need a baler? Sure, no problem. You go out and get a baler. Oh, you need a tractor or two? You go out and you buy a tractor. You didn't have to worry about paying for it because the money was coming in and it was good money. So, and it's kind of trickling into the grain markets now. Well, the grain markets were always unstable. Milk markets was a waste of time, in my opinion. If you didn't have 1,000 cows or more, you were not doing well. You can't do well with that anyway, because with the larger you get, the more fluctuations in the market, they do affect you pretty good. I mean, the smaller you are, the worse it is as well. But, so you have a flu go through your cattle herd and you lose 5%, 2%, something like that, all your profitability is gone. I was listening to a Millennial Farmer Off the Husk podcast the other day. It was one from about a year or two ago. It was a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And he had his father on, and Nate Johnson. That's his name, Nate Johnson. Seemed like a hell of a nice guy. Anyway, they were talking about hogs and how back in the early to mid 80s, you could raise 500 to 1,000 hogs and your profit was $20 bucks, 15 to $20 bucks, something like that. He says, and now it's barely $5. So instead of raising, 500 to 1,000 hogs on a small hog operation, and yeah, that was considered a small hog operation when I was a kid. It was everybody's hog operation. You had the larger ones, but you take $5 on 1,000 hogs, it's $5,000. It's not even worth messing with. You need 100,000 hogs, to make it worth anything, and that is after you fed, paid all your bills. You were to get about $5. So what that does is that makes that profit margin so incredibly thin that if you do get swine flu in there, and if you get swine flu in your hog operation, or you get some kind of a pneumonia and you lose, say, 5%, you've lost all your profitability. It's gone. And that's what's kind of scary about any of that stuff. Now, of course, we've had some people that grow or raise 5 to 10 hogs, and they'll sell them for hundreds and hundreds of dollars a piece, if not even $1,000 a piece. I bought a quarter of a hog here, a few years back. It was the worst tasting hog I had ever eaten in my life. It was like eating this desktop. It was that hard. It was not good. Didn't like it. I knew where it was raised, and my hat's off to the girls that raised it. They're friends of mine. Unfortunately, I didn't think that bringing a Sawzall to the dinner table was a good idea. Because it was just that bad, and the bacon was salty. Whoever processed it, they were amateurs they fucked up. And that was it. So we move into the grain markets now of today, and the fertilizer plant brought my soybean seed. Yeah, I bought soybean seed. I haven't made a video of it yet. I will be making that video here in the next, probably tomorrow. I'll have a video of what I bought and why. And I'm going to show you the seed, and I'm sure there's going to be some critics about it, but too bad. It's my farm, not yours. And if you want to put yourself out here on YouTube and explain why you do what you do, like I've been explaining why I do what I do, I won't criticize you. I really won't, because we farm what we learned. And the funny thing is, it's what was it, a Will Rogers quote? He said, things that you don't know, it's not the things you don't know that hurt you. It's the things that you do know that aren't so that will hurt you. And that's just what I've been learning a lot about in the last few months, probably the last 6 months of my life. I've been doing a lot of reading. My spectacles are for reading. That's what they're for. It's the only reason I wear them. I bought these because they look so cool. Frameless. They're expensive as a motherfucker just for reading, but I figured if I was going to get a pair of glasses, I would want the ones that I want. I don't want to just go down to Walmart and buy a pair of readers, even though I do have a pair of those readers from Walmart, and they work just fine. But these are prescriptions. What I've learned is that what I've been taught my entire life, a fair portion of it is wrong, unfortunately. A fair portion of it is wrong. Not that it wasn't a wonderful experience to do all these things, and now that I'm on a different path in my life, the critics have come out. There's some comments that were made on One Lonely Farmer channel about how, since the price of corn and soybeans has gone up, that I've thrown my ambitions of being a regenerative agriculture farm, or is out the window, and I'm just chasing the dollar bills. Well, the fact of the matter is that this is the perfect time to get into the regenerative ag carbon farming, because the cost of inputs is so ungodly high. And yes, you have a high dollar corn crop or soybean price, corn and soybean or wheat price, and oats. Believe it or not, oats is insane. $7 a bushel, over $7 a bushel for oats. You can pull 100 bushels of oats to the acre with very little inputs. Very, very, very little input. It's crazy how much oats are worth right now. And I was going to buy seed oats just to spin onto my corn ground to pull nitrogen out of the soil, just so that I could put soybeans through it, plant green through it. And I may still do it, but it's too late. It's too late. And it's so ungodly wet. You can't even walk on the fields, and you'll see that on my other channel, on One Lonely Farmer channel. So what I'm talking about, this is the perfect time, is because we do have a high grain price. You know, it's there. They're not paying what we're supposed to be paid. They really aren't. You know, it's the if the idiots are out there looking at the Chicago Board of Trade, they don't understand basis, but it's basically a supply and demand thing. Okay, it's a supply and demand. So when the supply is low, and say corn is $5 a bushel, the feed mills that need the corn and the soybeans, they will pay over basis. So if it's $5 a bushel and nobody's bringing in corn because they're not able to sell it for $5 a bushel, they can add 20, 30, 50, $5. If they really need it bad enough, they can add $5 to that price. They can put a purchase order out there and say, hey, we need it. You can put a purchase order in. You know, you can say, hey, I've got 10,000 bushels of corn and I want $9 a bushel for it. You sign a contract with your feed mill and they'll be like, oh, you're never going to get that. And for some dumb reason, something stupid happens in the market and they can't get their corn and they need it really bad. Their basis can climb up and hit that $9, just even if it's for 30 seconds in one day, because they need it. They don't really want to buy a lot. They just need that 10,000 bushels. And they know that somewhere someone has got 10,000 bushels that they have put an offer in for. That's called offering. I did that once with soybeans, believe it or not. Beans were about $4 a bushel, and I wanted more money for my beans than what they were. Than what they were. So I put in a $6.50 offer in. And wouldn't you know it, for like a nanosecond of one day, I sold, what, 10,000 bushels of soybeans for $6.50 when everybody else was getting $3.95. And the unfortunate thing is that was the year I had a hailstorm and it wiped it right down to the ground and I didn't get but 500 bushels. It was disgusting. And they tried to sue me for the rest of it because they needed it. The offer was there. It was legal binding. Yeah, so anyways, it was no big deal. They were able to get beans and it didn't like hurt them. And that was through Purdue. So, but yeah. So my carbon farming operation is going to go forward just like or regenerative ag, depending on what you want to call it, is going to go forward from this point forward. I will be weaning myself off of all inputs, commercial inputs, slowly over the next 4 or 5 years. Hopefully that it works out the way I'm hoping it will and like it should. Like a lot of guys like David Brandt and Gabe, God, what the hell is his last name? Anyways, there's a lot of people. And I listen to some scientists to say, look, this is the way it works in nature. And this is the way you can work it into your everyday life. And are you going to have 350 bushel yields? Probably not. Are you going to be within 10 or 15 bushels of your neighbor competitively with the yield? Yeah. Well, of course, there's a lot of people that are listening to this right now and saying, oh my God, if I got a 10 to 15 bushel yield drag, that puts me in the poorhouse. Well, not really. And this is how I can explain this to you. So every time you enter the field, you enter that field, you know, you go in and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go chisel plow this field. Your tractor is burning what? Pulling a chisel plow 10 to 15 gallons an hour. Chisel plowing. You're chisel plowing, you know, you're probably putting in 2 to 3 gallons an acre right now to chisel plow. That's $10. Just say you put $10 in their first pass. Second pass, you're going to go over with a disc harrow, and you're probably going to go or some form of a land leveler or something like that to get it smoothed out and ready to go. You may do that in 2 passes. You're looking at probably another $10 an acre. So now you're at $20 an acre, right? So you're gonna have $20 an acre. Yay, $20 an acre. Then you got to plant it, right? So you plant your ground, or you go over it with a sprayer and you spray down your residuals, and you know you get 90% of the stuff, and there's these nuisance weeds, and then you come back in again with another sprayer pass, which is another God knows how much money. We're just talking fuel here, and then you have to do that, you got that recovery, so there's another cost. So by the time you're done in diesel fuel, you're looking at somewhere around 15, 20 to $25, probably $25 an acre at current pricing to do this job, because you got to plant it, you got to spray it twice, obviously. Then you're going to come back in and you're going to harvest it, all right? Which, yay, that's where your money comes from, right? So what it costs you to get to this point where you can harvest it, you've already spent, $25 in fuel, wear and tear on vehicles, tractors, plows, cultivators, disc harrows, whatever you're running, vertical tillage machines, whatever you're running. You got that wear and tear. You're talking dollars and cents per acre to do that. And yeah, so here you go. You already spent $50. Just say by the time your wear and tear, and this is probably a grossly underestimated number, but just say it cost you $50 per acre to go over each, to the operation to where you're at harvest. And we won't even talk about harvest costs, because harvest costs cost the same. Probably a little bit less if you do the carbon farming side of it, but we'll get into that some other time. But at this point, we're just talking about plowing, disking, harrow. Plowing, harrow, disking, leveling, whatever you've got to do, you're going to be at about $25, and spraying twice, because you're going to have to spray twice. And, there, Bob's your uncles. Now, in carbon farming or the regenerative ag, they really don't want you to spray. I will be spraying glyphosate or Roundup over my acreage because I don't have a roller. Okay, I don't have a roller crimper, and the product that I would be rolling and crimping is not going to, it's just not going to terminate the grass hay. It's just not going to do it. So it has to be sprayed. I may have to spray it twice. So we're there. So let's just say $20 an acre for diesel fuel, and $50 per acre just to plow it, disc it, level it, whatever you got to do, plant it, and we'll just put it at that. Because diesel fuel right now, we're looking at $5 for off-road fuel. It's stupid money. $4 and some odd cents for, yeah, probably $4 and change for off-road fuel. I know on-road fuel, I'm paying $5.29, $5.30 right now. It was $5.39. Now went to $5.35. Now it's at $5.29.9. So $5.30 a gallon. So we're looking at just knock a dollar, not quite a dollar off of that. Here's William. Here's William. There's my little guy. So he's here. What if I told you didn't have to spend all that money on that tillage equipment, the wear and tear? You'd say take that $50 right off, right? Take that $50 right off. But, then you got a no-till. Now, your no-till equipment, 99.99% of people that have grain drills and corn planters and all this stuff, their grain drills, corn planters, and everything are already no-till planters. 99% of these things, they don't even really want to make or sell conventional tillage equipment because, A, it's super cheap, and they don't make a lot of money on it. The market for those is quite small, because where are you going to get a conventional tillage air seeder or corn planter that is, 64 rows for the Midwest? Nobody buys them. They just do one thing, no till. So you've already got that equipment. You don't have to spend any more. Hey, shh, you're going to be quiet, and you're not going to play with my camera, or you're going to go downstairs. Got it?
I got it.
Good job. Anyway, so you've already got that equipment. So in the fall, after you take your crop off, or even before you take your crop off, you can seed in a cover crop, whether it be wheat after beans, rye after corn, or beans, depending on what you want to plant. Just keep that living root in the ground, which continues to feed the microbiome in the soil, all that stuff. Just keep it feeding it. You can plant through standing hay, you can plant through standing rye, you can plant through all that stuff and save yourself a lot of money in diesel fuel. So the price we get at the market could easily be, it's exactly the same. So if I take $50, there's $50 off of my initial cost for my my input cost, which is probably grossly under. There's 10 bushels. There's 10 bushels, so you've saved there. I don't have to I don't have to buy the, $50. Yeah, $50 is a hell of a lot more than that. I don't have to buy plows. I don't have to buy disc harrows. I don't have to buy all that stuff. They're hundreds of thousands of dollars a piece now. Tractors are $300,000-$400,000 for a tractor. Mr. William. So he's messing with my mind. Can't do my video. So anyway, you got all that stuff. Just cut all that stuff out and then cover crops. Fertilizer. This is where your money is going to be cut tremendously. So first year out, I'm using compost. The reason I'm using compost is because I know that there's enough microbes, nutrition in that compost. That's it. Go downstairs. You're ejected. You're ejected. There's enough microbes nutrients in that compost to grow a crop of soybeans without any issues at all. You can put 1 to 2 tons to the acre of that stuff on, and and go for it. It'll go. You can put it in no-till through rye. You don't even need to use anything on your soybeans if you have rye or a wheat crop that you want to plant through, or anything else, because it's there. What you do need to do is have a healthy amount of moisture and a healthy amount of microbiome in your soil. Now, that's why I'm saying it's going to take 5 years for this thing to fully take hold, and I will have quite the ecosystem going on in my soil, because I'm going to follow the guidelines of recovering my soil from hundreds of years of absolute abuse. New Jersey has been commercially farmed or Europeanly farmed since the 1500s. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 2000, 500 years. 500 years, the topsoil is eroded away because of constant plowing and turning of the soil, wind and water erosion. I can imagine that the soils here were quite fertile at the beginning of the European settlements, and by the time of the Revolutionary War, even George Washington had stated that the westward expansion would need to take place to support a growing population or influx of people that were here, and the soils in the east were worn out. And that's basically what he said, that it was worn out. It was worn out because they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know that plowing was destroying the soil that they valued so much. They didn't have commercial fertilizers, but they did, they plowed it and negatively impacted the soil structures, the aggregates in the soil, which then prevented the soil from taking in water in a good fashion, and wind and water erosion. They cut forests and just turned this place into basically a desert. And we've done that for hundreds of years in this country and around the world. So now people have gotten smart and said, wait a minute, why is it that when you have a fallow field that's been fallow and just brush hogged off for several years, that the water that's running out of there is crystal clear? You could literally drink it. It's crystal clear. There's zero erosion. There's multi-species of different plants, and they seem to all thrive and grow. Grasses and broadleafs and legumes and all this stuff seem to be growing in these fields, and they seem to thrive all together. And there's hundreds of species of different plants out there. But when I put corn and soybeans in, the dirt that runs off of or the water that runs off of my fields are just mud. They're mud. It's muddy water that's coming out and polluting and filling in the deltas in the south at the end of the river and causing all kinds. So anyway, and I've noticed that. I noticed that for years. And if you're a farmer that has taken ground out of CRP and are like, wow, the first year I put corn in here or soybeans in here, that was phenomenal. I get like 100 bushel beans, and I got 200 bushels of corn. And you turned it over, and then the next year it's like, wow, I wish it was. Every year is different, and then by the third year, it's third or fourth year, it's just like everything else that you farm. More fertilizer, less yield, more problems, more runoff, more erosion, more everything, and your organic matter starts to drop. So Yeah. Organic matter is the life of every living thing. It is the life of it. CO2, carbon dioxide in the soil, aeration from worms and fungus and all these other things. Your whole ecosystem beneath your feet is much greater than the ecosystem above the ground. That's just a fact. And there are things that we put on our soil or on our seed that actually severely impacts the microbiome in the soil, which will ultimately give you a 5 to 10 bushel yield drag, believe it or not. Because when you kill off the microbes that need to form around that emerging seed or that emerging sprout, see that when a seed sprouts, it sends out exudates. It exudes the information to the soil microbiome as to what it needs to grow. And this is just absolutely 100% a fact. That emerging seed and that emerging root, see, a seedling puts down its root first until it gets the nutrients that it needs to send up its shoot. So it roots, then it shoots. So after about 5 days, some of you guys can force a seed to sprout up within 5 days, but just say 3 days. Let's go 3 days. You plant, you got plenty of moisture, your seed corn looking good, or your soybeans are looking good. You go out, you scratch down to your 2 to 2.5 inches of depth. You find that seedling, and it has a root that is like this, and at the very top, about this much of it from the seed itself, maybe an inch, there's no dirt stuck to it. But you get down a little bit deeper, and as that root grows, and then there's dirt stuck to it. That is the rhizosheath. That is mycorrhizal fungi, and within that is a bunch, and I mean trillions of different microbes around that root. And what all that stuff is doing is sequestering the nutrients that it needs to feed that seed. Now, as that seedling grows, if you have fertilizer there, it doesn't really need to signal anything because you're feeding it, and it's expensive to do so. But if you don't feed it, then what's there to feed your plant? Well, with the neonicotinoids that you put on your seeds, it kills off that initial signaling. Well, the seedling puts a signal out, but there's nothing there to receive the signal to bring to that seedling the nutrients that it needs to put up that shoot. And with sterile soils, like we all have, me included, we all have these sterile soils because of the way we were taught to feed a plant, where you could actually grow a crop using diversity, different cover crops, which keep your microbiome kicking and ticking, and put away the plows, minimal soil disturbances. You don't want to over-aerate your soils, because what that does is it causes the microbiome to go into hellfire. It will just explode. And then when everything is gone, they die. And yes, you do get fertilizer. And the fertilizer that you put down, a portion of it gets broken down and becomes available to the plant. But once those microbes die, all that expensive fertilizer you put on, you got maximum 15% of it. The rest is just washing out in the water that runs down the ditch. And you basically are feeding the algae blooms in the Chesapeake Bay and other places like that. You need organic, I'm sounding like a weirdo, but you do need organic nutrients. They are very stable in the soil. The nitrogen that's above us that we breathe, that is inert. Our bodies don't break it down. It doesn't hurt or harm us. It is just what we have to deal with. But with legumes and even grasses can convert that nitrogen that we breathe into usable organic nitrogen, and our plants will thrive and grow on it. But if we continue down the path that we are on, we will always be feeding our plants, and we will always, 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 always be spending huge sums of money on fertilizer. I had a guy tell me the other day that it was going to cost him $850 per acre to grow a crop of corn per acre. So if you do 1,000 acres, that's $850,000. That's with $350+ a bag seed corn, which will do about 2.25 to 2.5 acres at 80,000 plants per acre. So you do say 30, 60, 90. So you're looking at somewhere around 2.5. I'm going to plant 32,000 plant per acre. I think I'll be okay there. 30 to 32 is where I'm going to be. I'm going to do experimentation on that to see whether I am putting too much on for what my microbiome can produce nutrients for. If it's 28,000, 30,000, and 32,000, that's where I'm going to be. I got 600 acres to work on this, so I will do 200 acres of one, 200 acres of another, and 200 acres of a third. The early plant will be planted at 32. The middle of the run will be 30, and the end of the run will be 28,000. And I will be using zero P&K. Zero P&K. It's there. I know it's there. I know it's going to be there. I will make it available to the plant as it needs it, which is when it is forming an ear. Nitrogen-wise, like I said in the video I posted earlier today on One Lonely Farmer, is that I would be only using 100 to 120 units of nitrogen. Well, that's only going to produce 100 bushel corn. You're going to go broke doing that. Well, will I? If I don't have P&K that I have to put on, and I will have organic nitrogen from the microbiome that is breaking down all of that organic residue or biomass that is all over this ground, producing nitrogen and feeding that plant. So if I can come up with 150 units of nitrogen per acre, if I only have to pay for 100 of it and I get 50 of it for free, then I'm still going to produce 150 bushels to the acre with no P&K, very little nitrogen input, and the seed cost is to be determined because I have to go in search of seed corn because they have lost my order and I'm not happy about it. So I'm probably going to be purchasing from 3 different companies. Pioneer is on my list. I will be purchasing some from Golden Harvest as well, and I probably will be using some FS or Growmark seed, which I believe is Seedway, but they're just rebranding other companies' seed, so that's okay. I'm all right with that, and we will do that. So anyway, I still feel that there's going to be a lot of starving farmers at the end of this year, 2022. The reason being because we don't know what's going to happen. Everybody's looking at the positive side of Ukraine for our wallets. I'm looking at the middle of the road. There are two ways this could go, right? So Russia buys grain from us. It's just a fact, right? China buys a lot of grain from us. That's a fact. North Korea, I think they buy from Russia, so it's basically a resale thing going on. And North Korea may even be buying from China. I'm not sure about that. But they're purchasing their grain from somewhere. Now, there's no hidden continent anywhere where grain is being produced. So if Russia gets, we've sanctioned Russia. China's going to get sanctioned when China Joe gets his dick slapped a few times over this Hunter Biden thing. And that is coming. We will have Camel Toe, who doesn't know her asshole from a shoe sole, and hopefully November comes and we can wipe these idiots off the map because we're going to be paying for this for a very long time. I'm looking at 1979. I really am. I'm looking at 1979 when I think it was 79 or 80, when Jimmy Carter basically embargoed wheat. No more wheat going to Russia. Really threw the farm income down the toilet. There was too much grain, not enough purchases globally, and people starved in Eastern Europe, and we were just starving ourselves. A lot of farms went out of business, and bigger, better, get big or go home kind of a thing. That was the big guys that grew too fast, had too much overhead. They went out of business, and I'm looking at the same thing. I'm like, holy shit, this is going to be a repeat. Russia has invaded Ukraine. Ukraine produces 14% of Europeans' corn and wheat crop. If you look at the Ukrainian flag, the blue over the yellow, that stands for blue skies over yellow wheat fields. Okay, that's what I was told that it stood for. I may be wrong, but I'm not. I'm pretty sure that I'm not. The blue sky over yellow wheat fields. The Ukrainians are a huge farming country. It is a huge farming country. I do believe it is the second largest country in Europe, and it produces corn and wheat. I don't know about soybeans, but it also produces sunflowers as well. And right now, the farmers, you don't listen to what they're saying on the USDA reports. They're lying sacks of shit. They really are. Brazil and Argentina are in a major drought, and the United States has large portions of the country that are in a major drought. We are underwater right now. I mean, we just had 4 inches of rain. Fortunately, I'm mostly a hay farmer at this point, and it's soaked in. The fields are extremely wet. I'm quite pleased with what I've seen on the shovel, and if you want to see what I shoveled up in the ground that I actually ripped and had corn on last year, I'm going to show you what I'm going to go to a field again today, a different field where I have rye seeded on, and I'm going to stick the shovel in the ground and show you some worm activity and what it looks like there. So, but yeah, with that being said, the world is in a world of hurt, and they're going to fuck up the farm income. I just can feel it deep in my bones. And guys that are in major droughts, okay. So I'm going to read a poem, for the final part of this video. It is written by an Australia fella, so there's some language and things that Americans aren't going to understand. But if you're from Australia, you'll know exactly the game I'm talking about. I don't know what it is. Maybe somebody can explain it to me. I don't know. But there's a lot of people in this country, farmers in the world. Farm suicide is up tremendously. It really is. It's up tremendously. And it's really sad because these are the people that feed the world, and it is a fact. We do feed the world. We feed a world that thinks that we're trying to poison them with the products that we produce. And even that just is enough it weighs heavy on my mind, when I hear people talk about on Facebook, oh my God, and Facebook is just the antichrist of the world anyway. But there's a lot of people out there that feel that farmers are not, don't have their best interest at heart, that they're just trying to kill the consumer of the products that they produce, which is not at all true. We're just trying to do the best for everyone involved, our families, our farms. As for water quality and things like that, we are very mindful of that through the practices that we do. Some people do a better job than others. That's just a fact. Some people are blissfully unaware that there is a better way to do it, and maybe the first part of this video has something to do with that. But blissfully unaware doesn't mean you're ignorant. It's just you're doing what you were taught, and doing what you're taught, whether it's from a college-educated moron or whether it is passed down from one family member to the next, and how you do things. Now, we have this wonderful tool known as the internet, which is just, the internet is a great place to learn stuff, positive stuff, and it's also a great place to destroy your life. You can have your life destroyed here. It can. There's a lot of young kids that go on here, and they post a picture of themselves, and then they read the comments, and there's a lot of negative comments. I mean, you could have the most beautiful person in the world taking photographs of herself or himself, and and they are beautiful no matter what you look like, and you may have a good heart, and your face might have all the features that you would like it to have, and you may be a little overweight or even a little underweight. There's no perfect person, and where even if you were as close to near perfect as the imagination could put you in, there's always going to be a critic there, and there's a lot of people on the internet that would love to tear you down and just make fun of you, and then bad thoughts happen and you blow your brains out. So this poem doesn't just apply to agriculture, it applies to just about every aspect on this planet. The internet is a great place for people to want to kill themselves. they do all the right things, they become popular, and then all of a sudden the weight of the world comes on their shoulders, and the next thing you find them dead through either a suicide, a drug overdose, just something like that. But this poem is about farming, and it is about the struggles that every farmer goes through at some point in their life, maybe multiple times in their life, with weather, with prices, with all this stuff. In the end, it is worth listening to or reading. The poem's name is Rain from Nowhere. Again, it is an Australian poem, but it applies everywhere in the world, and I hope you enjoy it. It was very hard for me to read. I teared up several times. I've done it 3 or 4 times. I've read this thing 3 or 4 times until finally I got the better of my senses, and I didn't tear up. But just listening to it, it might touch your soul in a way that you may tear up. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the poem. And I'm not thinking of suicide, just so you know. Okay, so I'm going to do this for a 3rd time. You didn't know it, but this thing triggers an emotion in me that I can't control. Anyway, I'm going to read this. I've read it 3 times. Gets me every time because I know what this man is feeling. Even though it's a poem, it's just a poem. And it's just a poem, but it does, when you've lived through some of this stuff, you understand what he's feeling, and sometimes the thought process, not in the way sometimes the thought process might ring true to you. And I know a lot of people that, are feeling the same way as this poor bastard is. So anyways, with no further ado, and hopefully no more tears run down my face, because I can't show that. I'm an emotionalist bastard that hates his family. That's how some people feel about me. And that's not true, but let's see if we can do this again. And I'm going to have to edit this motherfucker, and then who knows whether it goes up or not. Okay, so this is a poem. It's called Rain from Nowhere. All right. Please let me get through this. His cattle didn't get a bid. They were fairly bloody poor. What was he going to do? He couldn't feed them anymore. The dams were all but dry. Hay was $13 a bale. His last month's talk of rain was just a fairy tale. His credit had run out. No chance to pay what's owed. Bad thoughts ran through his head as he drove down Gully Road. Gee, his great-granddad bought this place back in 1898. Now I'm such a useless bastard. I'll have to shut the gate. Can't support my wife and kids. Not like Dad and those before. Crikey, Grandma kept it going while Pop fought in the war. With depression now his master, he abandoned what was right. There's no place in life for failures. He'd end it all tonight. There were still some things to do. He'd have to shoot the cattle first. Of all the jobs he'd ever done, that would be the worst. He'd have a shower, watch the news, then they'd all sit down for tea, read his kids a bedtime story, and watch some more TV. Kiss his wife goodnight, say he was off to shoot some roos. Then in a paddock far away, he'd blow away his blues. But he drove in the gate and stopped, as he always had, to check the roadside mailbox, and found a letter from his dad. Now his dad was not a writer. Mom did all the cards and mail, but he knew the writing from the notebook that he'd kept from cattle sales. He sensed the nature of its content, felt moisture in his eyes. Just the fact his dad had written was enough to make him cry. Son, I know it's bloody tough. It's a cruel and twisted game, this life upon the land when you're screaming out for rain. There's no candle in the darkness, not a single speck of light. But don't let the demon get you. You have to do what's right. I don't know what's in your head. Push the bad thoughts away. See? You'll always have your family at the back end of the day. You have to talk to someone, and yes, I know I rarely did, but you have to think about Fiona and think about the kids. I'm worried about you, son. You haven't rung for quite a while. I know the road you're on because I've walked every bloody mile. The date? December 7th, back in '83. Behind the shed, I had a shotgun rested in the bigelow tree. See, I borrowed way too much to buy the Johnson place. Then it didn't rain for years, and we got bombed by interest rates. The bank was at the door. I didn't think I had a choice. I began to squeeze the trigger. That's when I heard your voice. You said, "Where are you, Daddy? It's time to play our game. I've got squatter all set up. We might get general rain." It was really that close. You're the one that stopped me, son. And you're the one that taught me there's no answer in a gun. Just remember, people love you. Good friends won't let you down. Look, you might have to swallow pride and take that job in town. Just till things come good, son. You've always got a choice. And when you get this letter, ring me, 'cause I'd love to hear your voice. Well, he cried and laughed and shook his head, then put the truck in gear, shut his eyes and hugged his dad in a vision that was clear, dropped the cattle at the yard, put the truck away, filled the troughs the best he could, and fed his last 10 bales of hay. Then he strode towards the homestead, shoulders back and head held high. He still knew the road was tough, but there was purpose in his eye. He called his wife and children, who lived through all his pain. Hugs said more than words. He'd come back to them again. They talked of silver linings, how good times always follow bad. Then he walked towards the phone, picked it up, and rang his dad. And while the kids set up the squatter, he hugged his wife again. Then they heard the roll of thunder, and they smelt the smell of rain. Whew. All right. This was really tough. First time I read it, it was like, oh my God. I just couldn't even get through it. It took me about 4 times to get through it. But if you are a farmer and you're on hard times, just remember, your family is the most important thing that you have. Now, as you probably know, I am not doing well with my older children. I've pretty much had to disown my daughter and my former youngest son due to things that they said to me and did in the last 8 years of my life. I just can't anymore. You know, there's a time in your life when you have to shut the gate. There's positive and negative in your life, and when the negative outweighs the positive, as hard as it may or may not be, you have to shut that part of your life and just realize that you're on a road that is going to be very, very destructive, and you need to take the next exit. And if that means leaving the ones you love behind, doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means that they can't be a part of your life anymore. And that's the decision that I made. And that kind of makes this poem really sad for me to read. And I know there's a lot of people out there that watch me and criticize, and probably going to draw some criticism for what I just said. And that's okay, because you don't live my life. You see a very, very, very small portion of what I allow you to see of my life. It's not always, rainbows and unicorns and God only knows what else, freaking fairy dust. It's just not that. I have a lot of good in my life. They're downstairs right now. They're downstairs. And my parents, they live about, if I walk that way, it's 1 mile. I could walk through the woods and be to my parents' house in a mile. It's no big deal. It takes me 2.2 miles to get to my parents' house, 6 minutes. I can do it in 5 if I'm in a hurry. Yeah, a big hurry, but I can do it in 5. Yeah, so we're close. We are close. And I have a very big job to do, and that is to raise my son, William, to be a very productive young man. And he will be. I'm certain of that, because he will be raised in a loving nuclear family, not in a broken home where there's always some form of chaos caused by someone, and that is just a fact. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. I did not enjoy reading this, but I know there's a lot of people out there that are, feeling like if I don't get through this year, with high prices, I may have to blow my brains out, and that's not a good thing to. It's not really a good thing to do. No. Yeah. Anyway, for that, thanks for watching. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you're not. And if you gleaned anything good out of this, that's what I'm here for.